Hey, what's going on? This is Rad, and I have another episode of SOFREP Radio to bring to you today. And with me today is a guest. His name is Jeffrey, and it's not how you sound. It sounds like Depatie, but it's Depatie. Wait, say it again for me, Jeff.
Jeff Depatie. Depatie.
Depatie. Yes. Depatie.
Yeah.
Jeff Depatie with us from Canada, Canadian military special forces, right?
That's correct. Yep. Joint Task Force 2, which is our Tier 1 solution, similar to your SEAL Team 6 or Delta Force boys.
I see. And in your mingling of that job, did you ever work with those counterparts on certain aspects of missions, such as the SEALs and the Green Berets and Delta, like that? Is that kind of how you all work together?
Yeah. There's kind of like this global engagement strategy, we'll call it. At least that's what it was called back in the day, where there was exchanges with those units, where we would train with each other in different capacities. You'll just learn a lot quicker that way, right? You learn all the hard lessons from someone else instead of having to learn the hard lessons yourself. And then, deployment as well with all those units. Myself, I never personally worked with SEAL Team 6, but with the other ones, I definitely had some hands-on experience in Iraq and places such as that. It was great. It's like anything. When you climb the echelon and then you work with the top of the echelon.
How old were you when you decided to join?
I was.
Yeah, I'd imagine, and how old were you when you decided to do all of that?
Yeah, Rad, I apologize. We're getting a little bit of lag. I'm gonna do my best to work with you on that. I decided pretty young to get into the military, but I didn't actually get into the military until I was 25. Just life happened. Things came up, little roadblocks, but they all proved to be really good learning opportunities that helped me become a better soldier once I did get in. So, everything in its perfect place, right?
That's correct. I'm going to work with your lag as well. And then I want to just say that it's really cool that you helped the Joint Coalition Forces during the global war on terror. So thank you for doing that and raising your hand. Is that how you swear in Canada? Do you swear in by raising your hand and pledging an oath like we do down here?
Yes. We have to snowshoe in, and then we put our hand on a beaver, and then we pledge an oath. No, I'm just kidding. It's very similar. The flag's there. I can't remember if there's like a Bible or something, but yeah, we give our allegiance to the military. Here in Canada, we still give our allegiance to the Queen. I don't know why. It's a weird technicality that I don't know. Yeah.
Well, you're answering my next question. You see how I was leading into that? Because my next question was, when the Queen comes over, or if she were to show up, would you be in full battle rattle at her disposal as a military person in Canada? Or would you work with like the Prime Minister?
Yeah, so we don't really have any affiliation to her. Really, it's one person that does, and that's our I can't even remember their title, Governor General, or I can't even remember anymore. It's so much ceremonial stuff, like for us to, we just haven't thrown the tea party yet. Maybe we'll do the new age kind of polite one where
right.
No, but it's getting on time.
We just say, hey, have a nice day. Yeah. See you later. Now, we know you've spent some time out there, and you've shot some rifles and learned how to shoot long distance. And I know that one of the things that my listener might like to know about you is that you are a part of that unit that hit out to 2 miles plus with some shots. You have some trained shooters in your unit that I think it's a world record. Unfortunately, but it is. What my longest shot was 1,300 yards. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah. Well, one day you'll get into the big boys club. No, I'm just kidding. 1,300 yards is still a magnificent shot. Let's like really think about that. You know, launching something from your shoulder, 1,300 yards and hitting a target. It's pretty crazy, actually. Yeah. So we have a truly great sniper unit, and I mean that with all humility. It's like I said, it's born from the coalition. Lessons learned in other places, and when it comes to war, sometimes it's, you know, the right time, the right opportunity, the right person, and yeah, I was part of that troop. I've since taken those skills and I created a long range shooting program called Ultra Long Range Shooting, for, you know, anybody. It's an online course. It's not one of those ones you have to do in person, and I've taken those lessons and put it into there, and yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do. It's a place of zen for me, you know, getting with my gun, hanging out in the wilderness. Now on this side of being on the military, you know what I mean? But yeah, it was a phenomenal unit.
Yeah. That's very cool. I have a friend, Charlie Mike, and he's down here. He runs Charlie Mike Precision. He's always trying to shoot long range, 2 mile. I think he's chasing that record right now. He's a former SEAL team guy. And, I just think that shooting that long range, the way I went and did it was I hadn't really shot long range. Okay. I've never had the opportunity to do that, even when I was in the Air Force or outside of it. So to sit down and breathe slowly, like, I have to say Xbox and some of the airsoft training that I've dealt with, to breathe, it just allowed me to do it. And when I hit the target, we saw a bunch of dust. And my spotter, my buddy Ajax, he was like, "Oh, that's a miss. You hit the dirt." And then the other spotter, he's like, "No, that's a hit because it hit up the dust." Right? So those big shots from far away, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, glass becomes a limiting factor in that, right? And like, it's actually, the bullet's good to go, your calculations on the wind are good to go, but just even trying to get the optics on it. So Rad and Ajax, that's some pretty fucking cool names. It's interesting. I was down in your neck of the woods when I actually shot this program. I was down in the deserts outside of Phoenix when I was running the course, and because there's a ton of what do you guys call it? Your BLM land. That's it. The BLM land down there.
Yeah, Bureau of Land Management. Yep. Yeah, they run all of the open land. So here in Utah, right, just north of Arizona in the Grand Canyon, we have, a huge swath of land out to the west that's just like salt flats from the Great Salt Lake. There's a lot of people out here that do long range shooting, mountaintop to mountaintop even. And there's a long range shooting club here in Utah that is pretty popular within that culture, right? That's what they do. They go out and they try to ping that target, and get better at that craft, for whatever the purpose is, sporting, obviously. But you did segue, and it's perfect for us to go there. You have the Special Forces experience.com. It's the Special Forces experience.com. And I can't help it when I type it in, just see the word sex in the middle. And when I look at your website, I'm just really taken back by everything you've written about. And yeah, it's awesome, actually. Yeah.
I appreciate you saying that, Rad. We put a lot of efforts into what we put out for content and the things we do. And once again, I had this beautiful education when I was in the military. And when I say that, I just mean an exposure to experiences that money can't buy, right? You don't get to go pay for this when you go in this class in school, or pay for it on a safari or whatever, right? And it really evolved my concepts of human dynamics, human performance, and most specifically behavior. And in that behavior was the concept of growth, being physiologically stronger and more flexible, psychologically stronger and more flexible, just meaning you can handle more, you can persist longer, it's a breadth of intelligence, meaning not just intellect, but your emotional awareness, your communications abilities, all those start to fall into the growth category. And so with the Special Forces experience, we started doing what's called intentionally facilitated post-traumatic growth. Now, we're really the only group doing this where we intentionally set conditions to traumatize your cells, both neuronal cells in your brain and including physiological stress. And you might wonder why that is, but it's a very natural function. Plants use tropisms and stress. You know, think of a tree in the wind. If a tree has no tropisms, no inputs from the wind, no stresses, it gets weak. That's what happens. And it's the same with people. So, you know, we use the term art of adversity as the tool which people cycle through these concepts of post-traumatic growth. And within that, we have a whole gamut of different programs that come together in one called the process, which, you know, involves very much online learning, and then a 8-day in person. And from those tools, we've moved that over into the plant medicine area for on the other side, because the whole thing, it's life is not linear, and as much as we'd like to think it's linear and recursive, it's really not. But the idea is your psychology on a baseline. You know, you go through something traumatic and you grow. And that formula, if we were to just look at a microsecond of it, is what we've begun perfecting. And it includes things that, you know, are out there right now, you know, morning routine, night routine, breath work, movement of all kinds, right? Yoga, animal flow, barbells, all the different things, right? And we've condensed those down, and we've come up with our own proprietary stuff. And then we use that on four people who are seeking new edges of themselves, finding the unknown, you know, becoming more than they were yesterday, which also means finding their shadows and their blind spots, and undoing. We call it resolving and dissolving. But if I could share, Rad, I'm working on a venture right now for veterans, and it's starting up here in Canada, because this is I've been waiting to do this for a while, because it's like, okay, what can you do with the vets? What can you do with the vets? And I just wasn't in a position to do much for vets at the time. It was just me and my small group. But now I've signed on a joint venture with Global Compliance Application Corps and SANA. So one is a blockchain research company, mostly working in agriculture, and the other one is a medical cannabis grower. All right. So in Canada right now, Veterans Affairs covers veterans medical cannabis. So bring in the SFE, that's my company.
Oh, that's cool.
And we're going to create courses for these vets. Yeah, it is. For a holistic approach to their healing, to their transitioning, to finding their new identities, and it will incorporate cannabis. And what we'll do is we'll feed that info back into the blockchain, and algorithms will run on it. And what's good about that is nobody really knows how to use any of the plant medicines really well, but you know, cannabis, yeah, we know it can boost your appetite. We know it can subdue stress. We know it has all kinds of different properties, but they don't really know, hey, smoke this much at this time of this strain.
Nausea.
You know what I mean? Like, so the idea
Sleep aid.
Exactly. Sleep aid, exactly. All these things that it can be used for if used properly, and almost like a dosing. And as we build up the algorithm, we'll know more and more and more, like, oh, if you're 150 pounds, you're 1 year out of the military, you're having a bit of identity issues, maybe you have a moral wounding, maybe you have a little bit of PTSD, you know, your prefrontal cortex is not firing as much as it should, you're a little bit limbically upregulated, hey, you know, maybe it's a sativa in the morning, you know, whatever it ends up being. Some of that is going to be built, but the program's called Citizen Green.
Indica at night, yeah, exactly. A hybrid during the day. Yeah.
Exactly, you know what I mean? And what does all that look like? What does that all look like? And so it's a really great program because it's all funded by the government indirectly. Like these companies were kind of like, hey, the government's not doing what they need to be doing here, or they're just moving too slow. So we're going to build this community that will be funded by Veterans Affairs. And it's, man, I'm super stoked for it. Super stoked because it can help. Sometimes it's not even about helping, right? It's just when you transition out of the military, it's just a big transition in your life. That alone, you know, to being part of a community of other people transitioning, you know, asking those questions, where do I go? Who am I? What do I want to do? Wow. Maybe having a down tune from some PTS, maybe, you know, things of that nature. Yeah. So we're super stoked about that. And then,
you know, just picking up,
I'll just say one more,
picking up the pieces where somebody else already went through the whole situation. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, and I'll circle back to that. Yeah, and our plan is in the next little while to head down to the U.S. We're just coming up with some creative solutions so that the vet doesn't have to shoulder the burden of the cost, and I look forward to that as well. And working with all the amazing assets that are down there, it's so good. You know, the U.S. is really leading the charge when it comes to vet support. This whole transition right out of Iraq and Afghanistan is really showing how important the other side of the trauma cycle, you know, because going through the military, no matter how strong you are, it does induce trauma to a certain level. It does upregulate you and put your nervous system into overwhelm, and it builds an identity. And no matter who you are, you have to undo those on the other side. So we're super excited about it. But yeah, everything you mentioned there too, it's all part of it. And it's an interesting thing, and we kind of go back to that concept of post-traumatic growth and just where on the cycle is the individual.
Yeah, and I know that we have this lag in between us because you know, of the signal here. So I guess what I'll just say is, you know, here in the U.S. just today, and I don't usually like to date my shows, but you know, it's September, and they were just asking the president of the United States here, you know, he was being pushed about legalization of cannabis right now, and he just said, look, I want all the states to be able to control it, but he wants to deschedule it to a class 2 from a class 1, which would allow for scientists and other medical and other professionals to be able to really dive in on it from a U.S. point of view, where you have folks in Israel who've been working in the hospital over there, just waiting for somebody in the U.S. to be able to like correspond with and cooperate with. But we've had such a grip on it, right? Canada has this legalization for it already for so long. You know, BC, Vancouver, Whistler, you know, the snowboard life, that happened. And then, you know, California picked up on it, and it just transitioned and snowballed across the states over these last 10 to 15 years. You know, maybe even going on 20 years now, has it been some kind of recreational in California, or medicinal. And, you know, going to Colorado, I was just in Colorado recently, and, you know, to see Mike Tyson has entered the ring, if you will, with his own products and his own brands for the exact same reasons, really, that you're talking about. You know, the trauma that he's dealt with or that people have dealt with, and he's like, well, I want to make something that helps with the trauma. And so, boy, the Tyson can sure pack a punch. I'll tell you what. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Like you said, it's going to be state by state down there in the U.S. But all this, everything that you're saying, you know, yeah, the administration moves slow. You know, it doesn't matter if you're here in Canada or down there. They all like to take their time. But you mentioned Israel. They're part of our partnership. The thing is, Rad, is the world is asking for this change. Everybody knows about it. It's happening, right? You can see it sparking up little places, and it's beyond just cannabis. It's beyond plant medicines like ayahuasca and such. It's a consciousness shift that's starting to happen, and I think it's a natural evolution after 20 years of war into COVID. The world does that. It compresses down, and when you get compressed down, there's really a great option, which is to expand, and just the fact that those things are starting to pop up everywhere is a signal that it's coming more and more. At least I think so.
And I think so, and I feel that we're in the same kind of age bracket, not to put you in the 40s, but I'm just saying, with the mores of us coming up in the culture, coming from the Super Nintendo days and the Zelda and the Tony Hawk and the baseball teams in our high schools and stuff. I think that we're that next generation to kind of like help push things over, and I'm for one all about it, right? I obviously, there's a lot of things on the show that I'll always just kind of like bite my tongue if somebody says, but I'm a huge advocate for, this type of research to be done for people with trauma or a wounded elbow, I mean, whatever the case may be. It may not be the answer to everybody's dreams, though, and I'm not trying to say that it's an end all be all to the fix, but it's worth a shot. And you do a process where they come to you and you guys go through it, right? I mean, if you're coming to you, you don't have to be a military guy. You can be military mindset, but you don't have to be from the military to come to your program, right?
Yes. So I do got to mention something. As soon as you mentioned Nintendo, Battletoads popped in my head. That fucking game I could never beat. Anyway, so
Battletoads, dude.
Yeah. So what we do that's different, Rad, than a lot of places is the issue with what we call trauma, even PTS. PTSD is a survival mechanism. It's gone awry a little bit, but it's a survival mechanism. And what happens is it creates a really hard-shelled ego. And that ego is what has to be dissolved in order to have real revelatory change. So with our programs, what we do is we intentionally facilitate that post-traumatic growth. But what we're doing is we're altering your state of consciousness. We're allowing more entropy, if you will. And the higher the entropy, the more probability of new circuits forming, new connections. Now, of course, you don't just go shaking up someone's head like a snow globe and say, okay, I'll see you later. There's all the physiological things that you got to make sure are tuned.
Yeah, see you later.
To be aligned, to make sure that yeah, good luck. To make sure that you're taking in the right micronutrients to rebuild neurons, right? But it's all about tuning it all up, tuning up your sleep, bringing down those adrenaline levels. So you got to do all those things. But the thing with habits is they can form a prison, but they're also our habits. And they're great when they're great. And then as soon as they're not great, that's where they can be really hard to break, right? That's where routine becomes the precursor to a rut. And that rut can just wear down and wear down. Do you still got me, Rad?
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm listening. I'm just totally listening. So I know we have a little bit of a lag, but I'm just letting you go, my man. And I love to hear exactly what it is. And I'm just letting the listener listen to you, say your words, my friend. And I would say that, it's a really cool program, the Special Forces Experience .com. When I went and researched it and looked it over just before we got onto our conversation, I'm like, okay, what am I going to talk about? What are we talking about? And it just seems like you want to pull people from, wherever to grow from within and, just reconcile with themselves through teamwork. And it looks like you have I say obstacle courses or courses. It looks like they're all lined up and ready to get down and dirty. And it looks like you provide some of that teamwork shoulder to shoulder. Tell me about that. How's that going?
Yeah. The reason I asked, Rad, is because it froze on my end with my mouth open. So I was like, you still got me, Rad? Yeah. So what we do is we do a full spectrum thing.
Oh yeah, I got you.
So yeah, there is like that highly physiological component to it. So that we'll test their bodies, we'll test their flexibility, we'll test their strength, we'll test their endurance, we'll test all those things, right? And along that, so everything they do, everything they go through is what we call neuropsychological tests, which means that we're reverse engineering their behavior into things like cognitive traits, physiological traits, biorhythms, things of that nature. And then as they go through, we adjust what we'll call the obstacles, which usually is just some kind of neural priming, mostly through power of suggestion, to see if that's an obstacle they want to keep. Because what we're looking for is what we call shadows. Shadows are blind spots. Those are ill coping mechanisms that we scoop up in our genetics, in our epigenetics, in our childhood conditioning, and conditioning throughout life, right? But the deeper you go down, literally the deeper you're moving into someone's brain. So, you got those newer areas, and then you're all the way down to like the hippocampal style memories, or hippocampus memories, where they're very deep and they're part of your foundation. And the issue with that is that means they're part of your identity, and therefore they're hard to identify. And the thing with humans is, we never really have a monopoly on reality. We have our, what I call ideality. That's our subjective version of reality. But it's constantly changing. The universe is constantly in flux. People are constantly in flux. Economics, it doesn't matter, right? It's always changing. Our level of intelligence as a species is changing.
100% in flux.
You don't want to fall into those patterns. And yeah, through our programming, yeah, it has definitely an SF feel. You know, we'll use guns to test reaction times. We'll use guns to test you know, working memory, long-term memory, short-term memory. We use all these tools to test those little neural nuggets to see how they're firing, where there's room for improvement and where there's not. And then we also discover their characteristics and how those characteristics show up in different scenarios, different circumstances, right? Just one, to help people evolve them. Because you're not going to really evolve unless you put yourself into those circumstances that'll force you to evolve, right? People know the concept of being outside of their comfort zone, except most people only ever will go to the edges at max of their comfort zone. Most people won't even do that. Most people stay in their bubble and they kind of truck along in life. You know, every now and then the universe gives them some adversity, of course, because that's what life does. But very few humans are courageous enough to step into the unknown. You know, that's stepping beyond your patterns. That's saying that's such a level of trust. You know, I always like shake these guys' hands because the level of trust that they're putting in the SFE, into the cadre, which is made up of Americans and Canadians, by the by, both military and civilian pros, is always, I don't want to say it's like flattering or anything like that, but it's just, you know, I honor that. When I see humans saying, and I mean like high functioning humans, let alone people that are more obviously in need of help, being like, I want to be better. I want to be more. I want to be of service. I want to be better for my community. I want to be better dad, better mom. You know, I love that. It absolutely pleases me.
It pulls out the selflessness in somebody when you have to help somebody. You're like a teammate and you have to accomplish a small task that might be actually difficult task together. And then you step aside and you guys complete that task and you have just created this unique bond that nobody else will have with you except for the 3 or 4 of you that completed that task, or the 2 of you that went through traumatic event. It's just like when somebody is, you know, let's say rock climbing with a girl or their significant other, and tragedy happens on the mountain, and they have to self rescue each other. Okay. Well, after that, they tend to probably get married, and things like that tighten the bond between others so tight. I totally feel what you're saying, because, you know, you're putting each other through this stuff, this ringer, this field training exercises with a cadre, and you're pushing people outside of their comfort zones, and then you see them thrive and succeed, and then they feel that and they see that. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah. So I think the, like, quote unquote technical term is deep limbic bonding. So we use that to our advantage, and I do like kind of caution people, don't take this for granted. To use on other people, you know, it's like, use this sword wisely, but also watch where people use it against you, so basically deep limbic bonding is when you push yourself into usually like high cortisol, high adrenaline situations where there's a lot of stress juice. And what happens is deep down, it programs very quickly a few things, what they call in, you know, by the Latin word is striving, which means suffering together, struggling together. And when you do that, the people who are there with you, suffering through with you, and the situation get rooted very, very deeply. And that's why, I'm going to marry this woman because of this, right? You're deeply connected. But again, that's like, what do they call it? Like, a word of caution is maybe you don't really love them. You're just deeply bonded to them. And that's actually one of the reasons that people stay in relationships for, 6-7 years long, after they've been miserable for, 10 before that kind of deal. And it's because they're bonded on those deep roots, right?
6-7 years.
Kids.
Yeah, right.
They've gone through life together, so they bond, this deep bond. But it's part of the veil. That's the ego tricking you into saying your behavior is good because you're breathing and you're quote unquote surviving. But check in with yourself. Make sure you're thriving. You're being more than you were the day before. That's the whole point of all of this is, for some people, it's to heal. Okay, you bring yourself back up to that baseline I mentioned earlier. But once you've healed or on your healing path, look for growth. Look to be better. Expand your consciousness. Not just alter it, but expand it. Learning new appreciations for life. And it's kind of a paradox because, well, everything in truth is paradox, but using fear to create more love in this world. And when I say that, think of fear as, shame, guilt, apathy, anger, desire, pride, things that are very us and themy, okay? Where love is about acceptance, neutrality, peace, joy, being satiated and in a total state of security in your environment. And then what I think the hero does, and like a Joseph Campbell's hero, is they go into the underworld on purpose to tamp their steel, right? To burn off the dross, to find the elixir, to make themselves better, because the fact is life will, throw you the proverbial lemons. And when they come after you done that on purpose or navigate it with success, whether it's your child gets sick and you go through that stressful situation, if you know how to navigate trauma, post-traumatic growth, eventually you could just use one term for it all, and that's post-experiential growth. Whether you're experiencing the stress side of it, which is very real and it's fucking nuts, when your brain starts to be hot-wired in these ways, the biases, what we call implicit biases that fire, that keep you constricting in and pushing everyone out, it's amazing what can happen. Anyhow, the whole idea is we use those constrictions in order to create expansion. And you're absolutely right about those bonds, about when going through something stressful. We see it in the military, you see it in first responders, you see it even in, in sales where people go through a high pressured sales pitch. They build up their sales pitch, they go through it, and then they do their pitch to a big company. I mean, the body can differentiate somewhat between a sales pitch and a firefight, but by and large, it's like that. It's very similar physiological reactions.
You're going into something that's very, as an actor and auditioning, I go out for auditions, and it's like, there's always that calm before the storm. You're going into it, and you have to just, it is, you're just putting yourself out there for possible rejection straight up, and you have to hope for the best, and, just go at it. So, professional rejectionist. And then you get the part, all right? And then it's all stoked right there. But again, it just takes that one part. You get that one film, that one movie, and you'll audition until you get another. It's crazy.
Yeah. You know what I've been working on, Rad, is that feeling you get down in your solar sacral plexus, and we usually associate it with fear because that's people what they call it. But I've started to notice there's a subtle difference between anxious fear and excitement. And I've just been reframing when it's excitement and when it's fear. And, semantically and physiologically, it's probably very similar. But it's about identifying, that those responses are for, the old tiger in the fucking bush thing, right? They're not necessarily, your audition's most likely not going to kill you. But so just reframing that with simple things, and then doing all the jazz with it, right? The breath work, all that, and honoring it, because that's probably what's going to give you the fucking fire to do a real good audition. At least that's how I see it. Even coming on this podcast, there's,
100%.
I'm like, okay, I'm fucking excited. I get to talk with a dude named Rad,
100%.
So look at all the positives.
Yeah, I get to talk with Jeff. I mean, really, it's 100%. It's like, there's the the proper planning, the preventing the piss poor performance aspect of it. Going into something where you're opening yourself up for constructive criticism on purpose. So yeah. I'm cool like that. I like what you do, and I think that if any of my listeners are totally interested in learning more about the Special Forces Experience.com, that's where they go. And you have an Instagram too, right? You guys have all of the social medias. The website's clean.
Yeah, yeah. So Jeff Depatie _ is my quote unquote personal one, and then the Special Forces Experience is another one. If guys want to, guys or girls, gals, women or men, whatever's politically correct these days, want to come and check us out and
if
be a part of this. Awesome. Be part of this transition where we're moving into really, really a nice space of being able to get back to the vets.
Yeah, that's really cool. Now, I've asked somebody on the internet, on Instagram. I usually say, hey, I'm going to be doing an interview with a special guest, and I said I'm going to be interviewing a Canadian sniper. Okay, and here's the question I got. All right, is Canadian nachos really called poutine? Is that a thing? Can you confirm that? And is it delicious?
Well, Rad, I can not confirm nor deny that one. No, we have nachos way up here. Poutine's just another delicious take on French fries. You know, I don't know why it hasn't caught on more down there. It's cheese and gravy on potatoes.
I don't know
it's
either.
Delicious, can't go wrong.
It's so good. A great question too from the internet. Okay,
like,
of all the questions they could have asked you, right? Like, tell me about your shot. They're like poutine, bro.
Yeah.
What about kettle chips? Is that a thing up there? Ketchup kettle chips? Is that something that is also a popular item?
Kettle chips are popular. You know what we got? We got chicken chips. We got something called all dressed chips, or dressed all over, as Ricky from the Trailer Park Boys likes to call it. And they're fantastic. Really don't know what you're missing down there, to be honest.
We don't have those.
On the chip selection.
We don't have those.
No. You guys got
we don't have those.
A bit of a limited chip selection.
Yeah, really. I'm kind of bummed out because I'm a chip connoisseur. So if you're out there, Lay's potato chips, send us some ketchup chips or something variety. But all joking aside on the food take, that was the internet bringing those questions. To get back to, what you're doing, my question is, what made you want to do this, right? What is it that said, you know what, I have to be selfless still and give back what I've learned? What is it? What made you want to keep doing this?
Oh, shit. Rad, that is the ever-evolving question. It wasn't up until recently that I could, hand on my heart, answer that. I've always wanted to be of service. I just didn't know what it was. I always felt that call. My soul always wanted to be of service, and I didn't know what it was, right? I was a boy who didn't know what that was, so I volunteered. And then I was a teenager who didn't know what that was, so I helped out my parents and I worked. And then I was in my 20s and didn't know what it was, but I was going to join the military. And, life, the subtleties of the universe, the nature of it all, we can call it God, we can call it whatever. Started playing out, and then I finally realized that was it. It was my higher calling. It was built into me to move along this path. And the more I was able to tune up my path, tune up what's called the Atman in Vedic training, that's from India, myself, my radio, if you will, my spacesuit to move through time and space, the more I could tune in outside of myself and feel those subtle energies. And like to really sum it up, there's a great great passage in the Bible, 22:14, Matthew, and it's, many are called, but few are chosen. Now I really, I'm not one to correct Jesus. I think that it should have been, few make the choice. But I wonder about that, right?
Okay.
Which way does the choice go? And it wasn't up until very recently that I realized, okay, it's at least both ways, but there's always that subtle hand there, right?
Yeah, for sure. And so, I think that's really awesome. And if you're going to quote the Bible, there's a quote that you should probably check out, and it's Genesis, all right, creation. So Genesis chapter 1, verse 11 and 12, which kind of loosely talks about God made seed and herb and plant for all of man. And then the next one says, the next verse is, and he said it was good. All right. So, if we're going to pull out some scripture here, anybody listening that can help make some change, seed is good, plants are good, things like that, used appropriately, the herbs, the medicine, all of these things are derived from these plants that are on the earth that we live on, that we walk amongst. And there's a meme out there, okay, Jeff, and I just got to put it out there. It's Jesus with his hand on his head, like a dough moment, going, I provided you one plant that can clothe you, feed you, and cure you, and you ban it.
Yeah, well, it just shows, right? But we jokingly say, the psychedelic renaissance is upon us, and it is growing, and there's the warriors of the light that are bringing it in. It just, how the world likes to move sometimes. That's the thing with fear wants to repel. Fear doesn't want to invite in new patterns, and that's what's happening, right? A lot of people are just instantly scared of, we'll use cannabis even. We won't even use like a high-powered psychedelic because they haven't done it. It's, you and I grew up through the ages of, remember the eggs frying on the frying pan, and it's like, at that time, eggs were bad for you and weed was bad for you. It turns out eggs are really good for you. And and it turns out weed has actually got many benefits, right? And it wouldn't be there growing naturally. We use every other substance that, we use uraniums and all these things that are,
right,
we deem 100% good, that are actually like quite caustic if you hold them in your hand, and all these things that are right there, and they're gifts. They truly are, and nothing to be afraid of. But that's the thing right now, right? We got to build up proper usage, because humans can do something really great, and that's fucking go crazy with something all the way to the other end, right? And just kind of fighting that ignorance.
Well, I did read that somebody said, the worst thing that cannabis ever got was its name marijuana. That's the worst thing about it, because here we are going to pharmacies, and getting our orders of Zoloft, lithium, Xanax, all these Oxycontin, all these big, huge names. And it's like, what's in that? Where's that coming from, right? And then you go and get prescriptions of Pepsid AC to take care of your indigestion. You go get all these different names. If it was called, Clinical 101, everybody would be selling it on over the counter, but it's called marijuana. And now all of a sudden it's like got this bad rap. And, of course, everyone's gonna say, oh, Rad, you just say that. You just think that, because I do.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing though, whenever it's simple. It's something I say, and it's kind of cliche and cheesy and terrible, but when you point a finger, there's three pointed back at you. And really, as the individual, when you are, have you actually made up your own mind on this thing? Have you talked with enough people, not just like-minded people who reinforce your patterns? Because that's what we tend to do, right? Humans tend to congregate in groups that reinforce their patterns. It's very safe feeling. So when that happens and you're like, fuck no, that's not good. And then just like take a look back and be like, okay, wait a minute. Why do I think it's not good? Oh, because my parents said it was, or, maybe a commercial or some kind of advertisement said it. Or maybe you had an experience with it that maybe needs reevaluating, or it was a legit, like, no, that's just not for me. And that's totally good too,
100%. That's why I said in the beginning of the show, this isn't a cure-all. It's not 100% for everybody. It can induce, certain psychosomatic, Attic Sane style issues. I'm just saying, but it can help. It helps with the nausea and the vomiting. With my sister-in-law when she was on chemo and she was dealing with stage 4 breast cancer, and the traumas in her life of removing her anatomy to rid the cancer, and and to see cannabis make her want to eat. All right, when chemo sucks it out of you, it's like she wants to eat. Here's some food. Yeah, she's like, can I have some more of that chicken soup? I'm like, yeah, Michelle, you want more? No problem. So to see the benefits personally as a caregiver of somebody who was needing it, I'm the choir. I'm all about it. And I think that your program is really cool. And if anybody's interested in participating, they should reach out to you and just learn more about it. Again, though, to each their own, buyer beware. I'm going to put that out there. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Well, educate yourself on it, right? That's the thing. When you're trying to break, especially neuronal patterning, because that's where it's really great, Rad. Beyond those physiological things, it can help you release patterning if done right, which is a bit probably over some people's heads. And I don't mean that pejoratively. It's just lots of people don't practice releasing patterns that don't serve them. And it is magic for that, But yeah, I'm definitely not sitting here saying, hey, go get blazed. That's what we did in high school, and that didn't work out so fucking well, because no one's teaching you how to do this stuff properly. It's just all taboo and running from the cops and such,
Right, and it's been created that way. We were just taught that way. It's just, and I'm happy to have this conversation. And, I just want to expose it. And I know a lot of veterans that are using it, okay? Like, I know a lot of not veterans that are using it. I know a lot of people that are using it. And I just foresee it, and they're using it for their own reasons. Everybody has their own medicinal reason. When you talk to them, it's like, oh, I just can't get to sleep, so I take this. Or, I just need to eat something because the chemotherapy, it's this. Or it's like, I constantly have flashbacks of situations where I don't want to think about it anymore, and this helps me to forget about it. So it's got just so many different factors, and I like how you're trying to study it and put it into perspective with science and data, because it needs that backing it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Rad. At these earlier stages of things like that, it's always good to have that feedback. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you for joining us. And I've talked about your website, as we wind down the show here. I can't believe we've been talking for close to an hour, but, the specialforcesexperience.com, we'll get that mentioned definitely on the website at SOFREP.com. Do you have anything else out there that you want to talk about or touch base on? Do you have any books or anything that you're writing, or any upcoming, your podcast? Do you want to talk about some of that?
Yeah, I'll quickly go over it. I appreciate the time and space to do that. We do have a podcast coming up next month. It's going to be called The Art of Adversity. It's going to be our way of just giving up everything we can, every secret we can about how to grow, how to expand yourself, how to heal your traumas. Because here's the deal. Hurt people. And we all have stuff that we can sort out. And as long as we don't sort it out, we're going to continue to live in misalignment. And until we all purposefully start moving towards enlightenment, which just means moving through time and space without interrupting too much in a negative way. We do have Serial 6 for the process coming up. That's going to be down in Idaho, up in the mountains. Last year we had one guy finish. If anyone thinks they're brave enough, strong enough, smart enough to finish, check us out on the website. And then really anyone who is a vet or is a family member of a vet, please have them come to our website and start building up this info so that we can give them this programming. And if nothing else, it's community. And I really appreciate your time, Rad. It was really great being on.
Well, thank you. And I know there's a little bit of a lag, and I don't mean to ever cut you off, or to my listener that might hear that. We're just working with the best things that we have today in our technology with what we can make. So we're just really proud to have Jeff on the show today with us. And, Jeff, you can come back anytime. You're always welcome. Feel free to invite me to any of your things you might be doing. I come and cover it with SOFREP backing me 100%. So thanks again. And with all that said, I just want to say thanks to the 10-year anniversary that we're dealing with for SOFREP.com right now. It's been super exciting to be a part of this whole adventure. Again, a big shout out to Brandon Webb and all of the guys, even Jack Murphy back, who helped get this thing going. So thanks to everybody with SOFREP.com. Happy anniversary. Thanks for being a part of our 10-year anniversary podcast episode, Jeff. And with that said, I want to say go check out thespecialforcesexperience.com. And my name is Rad, saying peace.